Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Adobe Live here on Behance. I hope you are having a wonderful Monday. The weather has definitely changed in the UK, but it is about to brighten up because we have Siri Linscock here, who is dialing in all the way from Berlin. Hey, Siri, welcome to Adobe Live.
Hi, thank you. I'm good.
It's good to have you with us. And it's great for the Boys Club to be back as well. This is part 2 with the Boys Club. And for everybody that's watching today, if you're watching in Behance, definitely get your questions in for Siri, because if you are new to InDesign, if you want to find out how to structure things in InDesign, or you're looking to get organized in InDesign, this is the stream for you. And I'm very excited about it because InDesign does scare me a little bit. So I'm really looking forward to getting into it today. And so let's say hello to everybody we have in the chat, because everybody is already in, they're already chatting. I can see Stuart there. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Oliver. Hey, Angus. Good to have the crew back in the room. Sandrine and Sean as well. And of course, Tim is there as well. So yeah, come and join us in the chat today. If you're watching on YouTube, all of the questions will be in Behance. So definitely come in and ask, because as I said, all about InDesign. Siri, please let us know. I mean, you are a graphic designer, a type designer. Let everybody know a little bit about you and your experience and what you do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so you just said I'm a type designer and graphic designer, and I come from Denmark originally, but I'm now based in Berlin, and I'm part of this design collective called the Boys Club, and we are a collective of 6 designers and illustrators, and we share a space together where we run our daily studio practice, all of us. But this space is also an event space, so we host a lot of events for a much bigger community of creatives in Berlin there. Everything from exhibitions to book launches to talks and type sketching nights. So yeah, that's really what we do with the Boys Club together.
Cool. And this is, of course, the second part of our time with the Boys Club as well. So we had a stream last Monday as well. And this is going to be good to go into InDesign today. And one thing that we were saying in the green room before we went live was that we noticed that we don't do a lot of streams on InDesign. And so what can people expect from today? I mean, I know I've mentioned structure and organization, but what could people expect?
Yeah, so I'll go through one of our book design projects, and I'll both cover some of the more conceptual thoughts and the cover design. And then I'll definitely also go more into the structural part and the more like nerdy, nitty-gritty InDesign stuff as well.
Fabulous. No, that would be really good. And this is, I mean, we're going to look today about how we get structured and organized and where we begin in InDesign. How did you learn InDesign and how did you get into this in the first place? Is this something you studied at university? Where did you start?
Yeah, I studied graphic design at university, and part of that was learning different Adobe programs. And we mostly actually just learned it on our own.
Oh, wow.
There was some time set aside for us to simply figure out, like, for example, one week they said learn InDesign, and we just spent 1 week practicing InDesign. And I think at that point I already knew some, and also 1 week doesn't really make you really fluent in a program. So I really just think most of the time I've learned it through creating lots and lots of projects, and it's usually through actually working on a real project that you find that it would be useful if I could do this and this, and then you find out how to do it, and so you always get better and learn something new.
That's true. Learning on the job. Every day is a learning day. Every day is a school day, we say. And
exactly.
Is InDesign your favorite app, or do you have any others that you use a lot as well?
Well, I do use other apps as well. I do use Illustrator and Photoshop and a bit of Premiere Pro, not very often. But yeah, for sure, InDesign is my favorite. Maybe later when we get into it, we'll see why. I hope I can be able to share my joy for InDesign, because I know we have a lot of people out there who might not like it as much as I do, but I think it's a really great program for creating systems across many pages, and I really like figuring all that stuff out. So
fabulous. And please tell us more about the Boys Club. I mean, I know you've got an Instagram page for the Boys Club, and some of the work is on there.
Yeah. So could we share my screen?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess you see my screen now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is the Instagram page for the Boys Club, and as you can see here in the top, here we are listing all the 6 members, and everyone are working independently as illustrators or designers. Actually, except for myself and my partner Amanda, we run the formal setting studio together. But the 6 of us all work in the same space every day, and we just really inspire each other and discuss about our client work, our projects that we are currently working on. And we just really have a good community with each other. And everyone has very different strengths, because some are really good at colors and illustrations, and other, like myself, I'm much more about typography, graphic design, and so on. Yeah.
That's good. And
you can see like
Oh, sorry, you go.
No, I just wanted to point out that you can see here on the Instagram page, like, what a very broad range of work that we are all doing.
No, definitely. I was going to say, Amanda, last week we did a dance kind of brochure or posters for a big dance event, and that was really interesting to see, because the work that you have on the Boys Club here is very different, as you just said, right? So we saw the photography side, and then you can see a lot more illustration in here as well. Loving the colors, see lots of nice
very colorful.
Love it.
Yeah, so that's the Boys Club, and then let's dive a little bit more into my work, which I do through Formal Settings Studio. So I'll just go into our website here, and just gonna give you a little bit of a more background and a better overview of the type of work that we really like to do. But basically we do typography-based graphic design, I would say, and mostly within the cultural field. And that could take the shape of everything from editorial design, book design, like this is an artist book that we did for a gallery here in Berlin. It could also be identity systems. This is the dance project, the dance performance identity that Amanda was covering last week. So if you're curious about that, definitely find her stream, and then you'll get the whole background story for that one.
I love the colors of that book, by the way, and I know that John in the chat said the book's really beautiful, and Sandrine is still in love with that orange blue book. Good. Those colors, that color combination was really one of the main things about that book. It came out really beautiful. And we also work on things like more experimental, more expressive custom type, like this one, which we did for a t-shirt design for the Boys Club, actually. Now this t-shirt has been really popular, and we've already printed many different editions, and this is the newest edition where we chose this green color. We also work on things like exhibition design, and also magazine design, like this one. It's a magazine called Anxiety Empire, and it's a lifestyle magazine about mental health, which we really also have fun working on. And then we often find it really interesting to try to work across both print and animation in one project. So for example, having a printed poster also with an animated version, so that the poster gets a different life online compared to on print. And this is an example of a logo design we did also with custom designed typeface. So yeah, really it's a broad range of work, but I think we can all see that this strong focus on typography is really what drives
most of the work, even though they're pretty different. And
Yeah.
we also actually design more like full scale typeface families. And right now I'm working on this typeface called Silvana. It will come out early next year on a foundry called BlazeType. And I'm really, really loving working on this project. It's a modern interpretation of an old style, an old style typeface, and it will come out in 5 different ways, all with italics as well. I'm still doing the italics right now, and it will also be fully variable, so variable from light to black. So that was a bit of a background and what we are working on. But the project that I'll actually cover today is this book design project. It's actually a catalog, and it's a catalog for the most beautiful Danish books of the year 2020. Mm-hmm. And actually, every year, many countries in the world have a jury that selects the most beautiful books of that country. Mm. And then all the best books from each country go to Frankfurt for an international book exhibition. So this project was cataloging all the selected Danish books of 2020, which we did. You can also see we also did the poster design for the exhibition of the books as well.
It's so nice to see a catalogue. I haven't seen a catalogue in such a long time. It's been a while, right? So or for me anyway, tell me in the chat if anyone else is But this is great.
And it's a catalog, but it really almost takes the form of a book, which was also our idea with making this rather small format for a catalog.
And John in the chat mentions, I saw Silvana already showing up in awards. It's not even released yet.
Yeah, that's true. So it was not awarded, but it is true that awards, this website called Awards, they have this listing of best typefaces to use right now for designers, and they already listed it. So I feel a little bit of pressure to actually finish it so that you guys can use it. I promise I am really working hard on it, but it does take a while.
Yeah,
I already worked on it for more than 1.5 years by now.
Oh wow, that's a really long project. Did you know that it would take you that long when you started it? Like, did you foresee that it would be this long?
I think my idea was to publish it this fall, but now we are already in November and we can see that it's not published. So it did take a bit longer than planned, and that's also the nice thing about a typeface project. It's really, really different compared to all these graphic design projects that I'm most of the time working on, because they have really short deadlines and they kind of like come into your life and out again, and you always have 4 projects at the same time. And this typeface design is really just something that I have kept with me for that long, and it's just my project, and I can do it in my own pace when I have time. Nice. And it becomes just part of my life in a way when it takes that long. So
and that's
it's also going to be weird to end it.
Yeah, it'll be sad, right? You need to start up another project. Because Amanda was saying last week, actually, that when she was talking about formal settings, that she has, so many projects, so many things on, that she's, for the next few months, she knows how busy she's going to be. And so, you said that those projects are fast, and, but how lovely to have something that you can just go to that just keeps going in the background. So, absolutely. So, So today, as we said at the start of this session today, the stream, that we're going to get into the structure for InDesign and getting into this. And I would say the only time that I've ever got into this, I took a class by Tony Harmer, who's one of our amazing creatives who joins us on Adobe Live a lot. And he mentioned to me to go through a magazine with a ruler and start looking at grids and how people start to place things. And that was my first introduction into InDesign and graphic design, really. And so I'm really keen today to hear how you begin a project like this and how you get into it. So
yeah, no, totally. I totally relate to that. I mean, usually I don't bring up a ruler when I look at a magazine, but I do really like to analyze other people's magazine designs and try to figure out what grid is behind this and how did they use that grid. And yeah, I really like that kind of stuff. But I'll definitely get into all the grid and the structure, but I would like to cover a little bit more of the conceptual thought behind it at first.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So just let's have a look at this cover design. And so, I mean, even though the concept might be very abstract, it often is a very abstract concept, especially with book design, then it's still something we always really like to have some kind of conceptual direction for a project that sort of guides all our decisions throughout. And we usually try to look for a concept by really asking ourselves, like, is there anything in the brief itself or in the content of the book or in the context somehow of the project that could directly inspire some kind of idea or concept for us. And with this project, we quickly found interest actually in the year itself, the 2020. We saw that this year had almost a graphical or like a graphic quality to it already by having this repetition of the same number 2 times. It's almost already like a little pattern. So we thought maybe this little 2020 pattern is something we can build more on. So then we started thinking about what if we separate this 2020 onto the book's different surfaces. And so we then got to the idea of actually almost mirroring each book surface with its own opposite. So for example, this is the front cover, and it's almost directly mirroring this, which is the back cover. So this stack of books is actually flipped upside down, and this is the back cover. So the front and back cover are almost exactly mirroring each other. Same with the spine. So this is the spine of the book, almost mirroring the outside edges of the pages. So if we look at this more zoomed in photo, we can better see that this is actually we're actually printing on the book surfaces themselves. And this almost becomes a book page surface dressed up as a second spine, which we thought was quite funny to play with. And then we also have the bottom of the book block as well as the top, both painted purple. So all the way through, all the surfaces are sort of mirroring its own opposite. And we like this idea because this is anyways a catalog about books as design objects. So we wanted to highlight this idea of a book as an object by really playing with the 3-dimensionality of the cover. Now, this might mean that it takes a split second longer to navigate the book cover because you can't so clearly distinguish the book surfaces from each other. But we did find a big interest in trying to challenge the conventional hierarchy of the book surfaces, because very often you see the same hierarchy repeated every time. You see the front cover being the most visually exciting one that have a big title. You see the back cover being more subdued, maybe with a small photo and then a longer description text. And then you see the spine containing some information as well, but not really utilizing the edges of the book. And that whole hierarchy, we completely wanted to challenge that and make something more three-dimensional that you can access from any angle.
Cool. And did they give you the colors in the brief? I know that. Did you decide on that purple? That was, like a design decision that you made then? Yeah.
It was. Yeah, we did decide on this purple color. And actually, we saw this specific, like really bright, cold purple color quite a lot in 2020 in different contexts. And we kind of felt like this was a bit of a 2020 trending color. And obviously, making a trendy design decision is not necessarily gonna be the most timeless design decision. But for this project, we felt that that was still right, because I mean, the catalog represents a specific year, and we think that it makes sense to capture the currents of that specific time in the design. Like, it might be a different case for a logo or a visual identity that we really want it to be just as timeless in 5 years, or just as timely in 5 years that it is now. But with a catalog that already represents the book design of 2020, we kind of didn't mind that when we look back at this in 5 years, maybe the color feels a bit like a 2020 color.
Yeah, it's so 2020. So,
yeah, right?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, and then as you can see, this idea of printing on the edges of the book also for us became a way of making some of this strong identity of the cover visible throughout the entire process of reading the book. Because obviously, usually when you read a book and you have the book open, you actually can't see the cover at all. But what you can see is you can always see the edges of the book. So we really like that about it too, that now the whole way through actually reading this book, you will always have some of that cover identity visible. And then we also started to see that some of these different surfaces started to speak together. So now we have almost like as if it says 2020 here. And when you stack, you have like 2020, 2020, and these 2020 start to like interact and play together between different surfaces as well.
It's so well thought out. There's so much detail into all of the little things.
Oh yeah, we love thinking about all those things. So
yeah. Cool. So you had the brief, and then how long did you have to work on this project?
Well, that's a good question. I think there is a lot of waiting time in between, because first we get the brief, but not necessarily all the content is ready yet. And so first we took a first meeting, and we just talked a little bit about the project and made some agreements. And then we were actually there for the jury selection, when the jury was there to pick out all the books that should go into the catalog. And we also had some communication with the photographer about how to photograph all these books. And then we started working on the design, and then we had to wait for the print production. So overall, it was actually going on through many months. But of course, the working time itself is much less. Like, I don't know,
it's
more
just
than
the whole process, right?
Right. There is a lot of process that goes before and after the design. So the project in the end stretch out, but a lot of it is waiting time as well.
Yeah, so I can see it in InDesign there now. That so you can see. Yeah, so this is actually the InDesign file for the cover. So this is the front page, and this is the back page, and this is the spine. And so after we had already come to this overall concept, we started working more in detail about the composition and the typefaces and stuff like this. And as we already saw on our website, we really like to work mostly communicate through typography. And we really see like that typography can almost be the perfect fusion between cover and between the visual and the content, because typography is visual and it is content all at the same time. So so that's why we really like to work mostly typographically. But then we also find that when we do that, we really need to still make sure that there is enough visual tension in the composition, and that it feels visually appealing and attractive still. So one of the ways we tried to do that in this project was to think about pairing this really
extended wide typeface with a complete opposite, a really, really tall, narrow, condensed one. So it's almost like the two are stretching in each their direction on the cover, which we find that opposition like really interesting. And another way we also thought about trying to create some opposition was with this like symmetrically placed title and number, both on the front and back, but then breaking it with something that's not symmetrical, asymmetrical, and does something else. And the white typeface it's called Last Extended, and it comes from a type foundry called Bold Decision. And the narrow one is one that I custom drew actually for the project. And at that time I was already working on Silvana, and these are the numbers from the Silvana typeface. And I had already drawn those numbers, so those actually became the base for creating these custom numbers. And it's really fascinating how simply altering the proportions a lot, like really going a bit extreme with the proportions of these numbers, completely give them a much more distinct expression that can bear to be like the main visual of a project. So we often like to think rather subtle ideas like that, but something that can be subtle, can be a simple idea, but which in the end does have a pretty strong visual expression.
Nice. And how many passes would you make to deliver to the client? Like, did you go to them with this and this was the final, or did you go? Is this in your process to give a couple of options, or do you say, I'll take the brief and I'm going to build it? And how do you work with the client when you made this?
It's a little bit different. Sometimes we have more creative freedom than others. In this project, we had quite a lot of creative freedom, and there was not a lot of iteration with the client at all. They would actually only comment on things like more on the content, if something should be spelled differently or should be in all caps or not, and stuff like this. But most of the time there would be a bit more. I think we are usually not giving them 100 options, but we do come with a certain direction that we see for the project, and then we could still suggest a couple of ways that could go into a couple of different directions. And a lot of the times we work with other creative people of some sort, whether it's artists or musicians or whatnot. And we really highly value getting their input as well. And oftentimes their input could inspire the process. So of course we don't show them a final result as the first step. We try to give them some direction for the project and take their input and then go to the next step.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of your work, as you said earlier on, you can see what you're about. You can see where you've been really successful with the books and all of the things there. So they know that's why they hired you, right? They know. Right. They've seen that, so they know what you can do. Absolutely.
Right. They mostly don't come to us if they want something completely different, because I think by now, looking at our work, it is pretty clear what kind of sensibility to expect from our work. Most of the clients come for that, luckily.
Yeah. No, definitely. And everybody, I've seen a few people have just joined the stream actually, and we're halfway through. Siri, I can't believe we're halfway through already.
Right.
The time it feels like we've been 10 minutes. But yeah, we're halfway through. If you have any questions for Siri about InDesign, about structure and organization in a book design, then get that into Behance today, behance.net/live. And if you're watching on YouTube, come join us in Behance if you have any questions. And actually, whilst everyone's here, let me just quickly update you about what's coming up for the rest of the week as well, because Wednesday, Gareth, I hope you're sitting down. Gareth is one of our resident After Effects experts, and we have a session on 2D animation in 3D environments with Tony Harmer using After Effects. And on Friday, we have Charles Carter. He's back again, and he's covering the new workflow updates in Premiere Pro. So busy stream, you know, on Wednesday and Friday as well. So all of that InDesign today, and then, you know, After Effects on Wednesday, Premiere Pro on Friday. So there you go. So yes, Siri, let's jump in, shall we?
Right.
You know, and yes, share with us, you know, your process. How do you get started?
Yeah. So let's shift our focus from the cover design and go more into the how we actually build all the content pages. And yeah, I think that's also really interesting. I think one of the things I really like about book design is that it's not just like a single artwork, such as creating a poster or an illustration or a logo, which is more like one single artwork that is its own finished result. Book design is much more about creating a design vocabulary or a little toolkit for yourself, or creating a design system for yourself that you can then utilize in many different ways. So for example, this book will end up having around 208 pages, but obviously we are not going to design 208 pages from scratch, but instead we look for certain patterns that we can repeatedly apply. And so that creating that pattern is really like the first work you need to do. And that pattern needs to show some consistency throughout the whole book, but also be flexible enough that you can have varied content and feel like there is some dynamic to the layout as well. So for this specific book, for the most part, we actually can divide the pages into 3 different systems of layout. And that's why I've already predefined three master pages here. So that's one of the first things we would do, is to look at what kind of content do we have, how many different types of pages will we need, and then systemize that into some different masters. And masters are basically some templates that we make for ourselves that we can then later apply to many different pages throughout the entire document. And then if we change something one place in the master, it will automatically update all the other pages. So that's what's really smart about working with the masters.
That's good.
Yeah, so we have already, it's a little bit like a TV kitchen. I already prepared the masters because honestly, I don't think you want to look at me do that. But the first type of page that we'll need for this book is a sort of, I call it the category page. It's an opening spread for every time we get into a new category, because what this catalog is really going to do, it's going to showcase all these books that were selected as the most beautiful Danish books. And those selected books are being categorized into some categories like fiction, art books, graphic novels, and so on. So every time we get to a new category, we need this sort of opening spread that presents that category. So I made a master page for that. And all the master page contains are just 2 text boxes where I wrote category and a number. And that will later go on to many different pages where we can edit in these text boxes on the specific pages.
And Siri, in the chat, Michelle has asked, what advice do you have for formatting a numbered list? Michelle's having trouble with the space between the number and text, especially on double digits.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say mostly the type designer's responsibility, because it is often seen that you use a typeface and that the numbers are somehow not spaced as good as the letters. So most of the time, it's a matter of choosing a different typeface where the type designer paid more attention to the numbers. And that's really like almost all I can say. It's true that we do see a lot of typefaces where you, for example, write 10 and then there is a huge amount of space between 1 and 10. And having to sit and adjust that, we can adjust it in InDesign, but it would be a lot of work. Let's say you have to adjust all your page numbers in 300 pages. That would be so many hours.
Wow.
So I would first recommend to choose a typeface that has good spacing. If for some reason you still didn't do that and you want to adjust the spacing between numbers, you can do that in InDesign. You can use the shortcut Alt. If you hold down Alt and then use the left or right arrow, you can just manually adjust the space between two numbers. And you can also do it up here in this spacing panel.
And if you did that in the master, because you've got a master document there, would that change the spacing across all of the rest of the pages, or would you have to go each page? And
I would probably have to go each page, because the thing is that even though this is a master page, now I write category number 10. This is probably not, this is probably going to be the only time I need category number 10. So the way I would actually use it now, I can try to just apply this master to this page number 1. So maybe here I would unlock the master objects, and then I would probably write something else like 1 or 9. Oh, I don't have 9. 7 or 12. And now it's not any longer 10. So that's the problem with trying to space a typeface in InDesign.
Yeah, definitely. I see it now that you've Thank you for covering that. Michelle says thank you as well. No problem.
No, that's good. I hope that helped. But that's basically our first A master number, or A master as we call it. And then we have a B master, which is for our text pages, because for every book that we need to present, those books that were selected and that are cataloged in this catalog, we have one text page per book. And so we already prepared this one text page master that ensures that all the different books throughout the catalog will have a text page where everything is placed exactly in the same position every time, and that the typefaces have exactly the same size every time, and so on. So what we also have added to this master for the text page is the grid, because we didn't really need that for the first master. As you can see, we just have some margins, but for the text page, we actually need this grid as well. So we have chosen to work with an 8-column grid, and each of these columns have a little bit of space in between them. And the reason why we chose to work with 8 columns for this project is because we knew that for this main part of the text, we want this simple 2-column grid. And so it made sense to work with an even number of columns, like 8, that you can easily split up into 2. But the other 8 columns also give us the option to flexibly arrange other types of information on other columns. And that makes the whole thing a little bit more dynamic, varied. It's easier to navigate in different hierarchies of information. So for example, this is a list of credits for all the people who were involved in creating a book. And that goes only across 6 columns, as you can see here. But then it nicely aligns with the publisher up here, which is pushed in 1 column. So all these 8 columns, they both give the possibility of having this super solid, simple 2-column structure of the main text, but also arrange other informations more dynamically.
That's good. And you have another question in the chat from Sandrine,
Yeah.
who wants to know, is there a way in InDesign to set a text frame in master pages without actually writing any text? And then in brackets, she says, that way you don't have to unlink temporarily the master page from the actual page to input text. So yeah, is there a way?
I'm not sure I understood the last part, but it's absolutely possible to make text boxes in the master page without adding any text. I could totally delete all of this text, and then I would still, let's try to apply this. I need to. So now I'm just going to apply this master to a spread. And now you can see that I still have this text box and it's empty. But it's still
there.
Yeah, it's still there, and I could just start writing in it.
Oh.
And because I had already given that text in the master a styling, you can see when I click into this text box, it already has a paragraph style. It's a paragraph style that I call body for body text. So yeah, so because I already gave that text in the master a paragraph style, then even though there is no text in the text box, then on the content page, if I start writing anything here, it will automatically get that correct paragraph style.
Sandrine says she says that's
yeah,
what I
you're
meant.
welcome. Yeah, the reason why I did write some things is simply just to make it more clear for myself. I think it's a little bit more obvious when I have to use this master that I clearly write title of the book goes here, publisher, and then credits and so on. So it just like makes it much more clear for myself what information goes where. Yeah.
And Siri, do you have like preset grids that you use? Think of anyone starting InDesign from scratch. Like, would you recommend that they have grids that they always follow, that they go back to? Because in this case, you've got the 8. Or should it always depend on the project and just start a new grid every time? Like, do you have tips there for grids?
I would start a new grid every time. That's what I do. I don't really have a specific grid that I always use. I think it really depends on what type of information you need to put on a page. And also, so it's really actually preparing all these masters and paragraph styles and finding a hierarchy and a composition and a structure that works across of a lot of different information. That's a lot of work, and it's a lot of experimentation. And I think I usually try one thing first, and then I start layouting the book, and I kind of test my own system throughout by applying it to a real layout. And then I sometimes find out that, oh, actually the system that I created is not really working for all my content, so I need to change it. But that's the good thing about the master. Then I just change it in the master, and it automatically changes throughout.
Cool. Yeah. Good advice.
Yeah. So that's the text master. Simply just with a grid, some columns, some text boxes that all have some paragraph styles. And the last master that we need is the C master, and that's a master for images. So all it has here is empty photo boxes that I can later fill in on different pages. And it just basically makes sure that all the images that I put into the document later, they always have the same position on many different pages. So yeah, that's really like the setup. That's the most of the preparation work. It's to create these masters and the styling and really what I call the toolkit. And it can be a bit tedious to prepare all of this, but I really think it's worth it once it's done, because it makes the rest of the workflow and the process of actually producing the layout so enjoyable and really fun to work with, because you're working with your own toolkit, your own system that you created for yourself. And it can almost become like meditative to just sit and fill all of these templates out and make everything work nicely.
Absolutely. And then some of our creative experts in the chat were writing earlier on, there's a little conversation around the pre-flight green that you see at the end. So why at any point would we not see green when we're in pre-flight before we're ready to print? What kind of things could go wrong here where we'd expect it to not be green?
Many things. That could be something like overset text. Let's say I'm just going to fill this text box with some random text. So now this text box is full. And then if I make it smaller, you can see now I have this little red cross that indicates that now there is some text that is overflowing. There is not space for it. So
I now understand what that means, because I had had loads of those boxes on something I made and I couldn't understand why, and now I completely
Okay. So if I click on that and then draw a new text box, I can see, okay, this text was not, that this text is missing now because there is no space for it. So I need to make sure that all the text is visible. So that's one thing that the pre-flight could tell you, that, oh, maybe you have a problem here because some of your text is hidden. It could also be something like an image not being in the right resolution. So usually, like we say, it needs to be 300 dpi when it's for printing. A lot of time 250, I would say, is also completely fine. But that's something that if you have a photo with only 72 dpi, that works fine on the screen, but the pre-flight would be able to pick that up and say like, oh, if you're planning to print this, then that resolution might not be good enough.
Brilliant. And Stuart's mentioned in the chat, he said lines too thin. What do you mean by lines too thin, Stuart? How could that be a problem, Siri? If the lines
if they're too thin?
Yes. What do you mean the lines?
I don't know what he means by that. Does he mean the lines in the grid in the background, or
he says hairline? The hairline is too thin.
If the hairline is too thin, you mean for printing?
Maybe it's the bleed lines, maybe around the edge. Tim's putting wear a hat in the chat.
Well, I'm actually not exactly sure what the question is, but if we're talking about thin lines in a layout that you want to print, like let's say I had a line and now it's 1 point. It is true that if you make it extremely, extremely thin, like 0.1 points, then maybe the printer wouldn't be able to pick that up, or wouldn't really be able to print that well. So I personally always go with 0.25 as the minimum, or I wouldn't go lower than that for print.
That's good. Yeah, Stuart's agreed with you. And he said minimum for print, he says, is 0.15 to 0.25.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So these are good tips. What other tips could you give us as well, Siri, for good rules, good practices to follow?
Good practices to follow. I mean, one thing I actually could show is now when we are adding in all our real text into the pages, and we are really just using our own template to do that, then because we already have a really good template that makes everything easy for us, now we have the capacity to really look into the details of how the text then flows. Does everything look harmonic and stuff like that? And that's also a very meditative practice. I enjoy going through a document and just checking text flows and stuff like this. And here we can see that we have what I call an orphan. And an orphan is when one word is lonely on one line. And typographically, that just doesn't really look great. It's a little unbalanced and almost as if there is too much attention drawn to that word. Plus, there is a lot of space appearing here. So if possible, I would try to avoid that. And one way to go about it would be to adjust a bit in the tracking of the text. And the tracking is the space between the letters. So that can be adjusted here. So I could try to either increase or decrease the space between the letters and see if I could maybe make space for this word on the previous line. So I'm gonna try to go with -5. And yeah, that worked out. So that was a pretty easy fix. I could also go with +5. And now instead I would push one word down to that line. So I have two lines or two words together on that last line, which also looks better.
And John actually asked this question like 2 minutes ago in the chat. So I hope that answers your question, John. And you're right, it doesn't look so good when there's just one word. Yeah, that's a really good tip. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But maybe it's worth mentioning too that, don't go too extreme about that. Like let's say I go up to 30, then I hope you can see that it feels like this text is really starting to fall apart somehow. And that also doesn't look great. So don't go like above 10 or below -10.
Good tip. Yeah, really good tip. Nice. And one thing I saw that you did on the main kind of homepage, so into my head's in the web, the front cover of the book, I noticed that on the 2020, you had some text that overlapped the, one of the numbers at the front there. And that's good. That makes it, really dynamic. I really like that. Are there tips for, working with multiple shapes and multiple, if you've got a lot to fit on a page, like, are there any rules that you would give to people, or advice about, spacing things out, or too much on a page?
That's a hard question. Let's go back to that design so that we all see it.
So that's perfect. There's not too much going on. It just looks great. But if you get people that say, I want this on the page and this on the page,
I mean, exactly. That's what I'm all about. And I think why this works is because there is a clear intention, which was everything I explained you earlier on. There is a clear focus to let the typography be the main communicator here. And we don't speak through typography and a little illustration and then a little photo on the background or anything like that. We speak through a very clear voice that is very decisive about how it wants to communicate. And that's through typography having like opposite proportions. So I think when you have so much clarity about what it is that you want with a design, you can easily overlap two things, or play a little bit more, be a bit edgy with certain things. And that I think the main point is to just be really clear about and have the courage to commit to an idea. And I think that's especially difficult when you work with clients, because they usually have a lot of excitement and a lot of different, like, we could also maybe this, and it's not that these ideas are not great, but the problem is if you have too many ideas at the same time, none of them are really going to work in the end. So I think that's the whole secret, to really have the courage to radically decide on an idea and let that idea guide all the decisions throughout the project.
Really good advice. Have a clear objective, clear outcomes. Absolutely. Yeah, I can't believe I said homepage. Sorry. I know Gareth's like, he's laughing. My head's a web, honestly. I've tried to pinch zoom my fingers into books before now. I mean, honestly, I don't know what happens. It's so digital these days, aren't we? But it's really good to see a catalogue there being made, and you've shared some really great tips today, Siri. So thank you so much. There's still 4 minutes. If any of you have any other questions to Siri about InDesign, setting up the master views, and we've covered a lot of things today. I've made some notes, so I'm really happy as we've covered InDesign today. And Siri, what's next for you? Are you working on obviously going to finish your the typeface, and any other big projects and things that you're working on?
Yeah, definitely the typeface, and then we have a few clients that we work on consistently. That is a magazine that comes back every 4 months, which is it's really great to have these routine projects that we know really well. And I think we have one of those coming up soon, and we also have another book coming up at the beginning of next year. So a little bit of different projects, but definitely a lot of focus on finalizing my typeface so that everyone can get to try it out.
That's good. No, that's so good. Well, it's good really good to meet you, and it's really lovely to see the Boys Club. We've had you over 2 streams now, and it's great to see the work that you're doing, and just how busy you are. You can see why you're so busy, because the work that you've shared is really, really good. So great to have you on the stream. For anybody that wants to watch this back, of course it goes straight to YouTube after the stream, so you can rewatch it here and get more tips and things like that there to follow up if you've missed bits today. And for the rest of us, we are back on Wednesday with After Effects with our very own Tony Harmer, working with Mikey. So Mikey Dowdall's covering 2D effects to 3D. So it's an exciting week. It's lovely to meet you, Siri, and I hope to see you again soon on another Adobe live stream.
Yeah, I hope so. Thanks for having me.
All good. Bye, everybody.